Hello and welcome back. My name is Jeremy Goldschmidt. I'm the founder and CEO of RentBetter, and thanks for joining us at session number 3 in the path to managing your own rental property. In the past 2 sessions, we've covered why there is an opportunity and why we think it's important for you to manage your own property. Then we covered what are the steps involved in managing your own property. And today we're going to go to another level of detail and talk about how you can do it and what tools are available to you. In addition to that, there's also some tools that you'll see right below this video, which includes a switching from your agent kit if you're considering doing that. And there's also an ebook which has quite a large amount of detail about this whole process end to end. If you were to go to the landing page of the RentBetter website, you'll also see that there's a pricing report which goes back to CoreLogic and RP data, and you can actually get some really great data on pricing and the value of a property. So just to quickly recap where we've come from in the previous sessions, because I think it's worth just spending a second on context. In session 1, as I said, we talked about the why and the fact that there's a change in the market and consumer behaviour, largely driven by technology, but also sort of an erosion of trust, and that there's an opportunity to save money and take control of your property. In session 2, we looked at who owns property and what is the sort of demographic makeup of those people. We talked about the property management life cycle and what are the actual steps that you need to do. Now I'm really excited to hand over to Alison, who's actually our product manager, who's going to take you through one of the tools we think that you can use in this process. And so the RentBetter platform is going to give you a way to guide you through a lot of the steps that we've talked about. One of the things that we got from those of you who kindly filled out the survey and gave us a lot of information as input into these sessions is that people want one place to hold information and that everything should be all in one place rather than all over the place. And so Alison will take you through a guided tour of the platform and how you can actually take advantage of that.
Hi, I'm Alison Marin, the product manager at RentBetter. Today I'm going to take you on a guided tour of our experience so that you can better understand how to successfully self-manage your investment property with our product. But before I do that, I thought I'd give a quick summary of what Jeremy went over in the past 2 sessions. If you remember, when he was going over the why and the what, Jeremy drew a diagram of a house, a horizontal line, and some cycles underneath. That diagram represents your investment property, the period of time in which you own it, and the tenancies that you have during that period of time. Those tenancy cycles are where you're going to spend a majority of your time and effort, and we want to make sure it's as stress-free as possible and you get the biggest return on your investment. We broke down those tenancy cycles into stages, which include advertising your property, selecting a tenant, setting up the tenancy, overseeing that tenancy, and then completing it or renewing it. Sometimes you go through the whole cycle. If you just purchased a property and you haven't rented it out before, then you probably need to advertise it, receive inquiries and applications, set up the lease agreement and condition report and collect bond after you've selected your favorite tenant, and then oversee that tenancy where you collect rent and maybe help out with some minor maintenance issues. And then you either complete the tenancy if they're moving out or you renew it if you both had a good experience. But sometimes you don't need to go through the whole cycle. Let's say after that first tenant, your friend moves to town and they'd like to live in your investment property. Well, this means you don't need to advertise and you don't need to go through the selected tenant phase because you already have one. So then you can jump straight to setting up that tenancy, overseeing it, and probably renewing it. Now that you know what you need to do, you're probably feeling good about it and pretty excited. But sometimes knowing what you need to do is not enough. Sometimes you need a little bit of support and help along the way, while still being the owner who's empowered and knows what's going on with their property. When I think of something that I know I can do and I want to do, it's running. I want to run a half marathon, but sometimes I get nervous or put it off, and I don't know exactly where to start. If I had an accountability partner or a coach, they could help me break it down into smaller steps while still empowering me to understand that I can do it. When it comes to RentBetter, we don't want to take away all of your control. We want to empower you to self-manage your investment property the way that you want to, and so that you know what's going on with it. And we also want you to get the highest return on your investment that you can. What's exciting to me is that probably even in this workshop group, there's people in different phases. Maybe some of you don't even have a property yet, and you're looking into buying and you're trying to decide if you want to go with an agent or self-manage. And maybe some of you do have an agent, but it's not the best experience and you want to find a way to save more money. And also, there could be some of you that are self-managing and maybe it's going well, but you're looking for some areas to improve. Do you have a lot of spreadsheets open? Do you not always keep track of your finances the way you want to before tax time and it gets a little stressful? Whatever it is, we've talked to our users to identify and understand those main pain points. And we've done this in order to empower you to take control over your property, to save money, and make you feel comfortable along the way. It's scary when you don't know what you don't know. And with RentBetter, we help you understand what you need to do and when you need to do it. So let's jump right into this guided tour. All right, let's get this demo started. Welcome to the RentBetter platform. Right now you're on the home base, which is the My Properties page, where you can see all of the properties you have and what you have to do for them. But before I dive into those features, I thought that I would quickly tell you how we got here. So you'll be asked to sign up on our landing page where you just enter your name and your email address and your phone number, and you'll click to create an account. And then you'll be brought to a page like this, where you just put in the basic information about your property so that you can create that property card that we see on the other page. So just enter your details and click set up, and you're brought to the My Properties page. So just a high level overview of this page is this is your card, so this is your property, and it represents all the features that you have for that property and what you have to do with them. So you'll have little notifications if you have something to look at or something to check in on. On the left-hand side is your navigation, so it's just kind of the high-level features. You're always able to see this navigation on every page in the experience, so you can click My Properties to get back to this page. You're able to get to your billing profile and your account and your documents, anything that you save that's related to your property. We recommend that you add documents that you had previously to using this platform so that you can organize everything in one place. If you have multiple properties, you're able to click here or here to add a new property, and you'll be presented with those same property details that I showed you before. When looking at your property card, you're able to see the image of your property, which you can add when creating the ad, your address, the details of your property, which we'll add soon, and then the plan that you're on. We've broken up the property card into two main sections, Find a Tenant and Manage My Property. Find a Tenant has all the features that relate to advertising your property and selecting your tenant. And Manage My Property is everything that you do during that tenancy. When you're ready to advertise your property, you can click Create Ad, and it'll open up the ad feature. On all of our features, we have previews that help you understand what to do if you're confused about how to use that feature. In the ad, you add your property address, your details, talks about the features in your property. You can put a title and description, add high quality property photos, choose any sort of inspection details when you would like people to come and visit your property, and add your information. After you've saved your ad and chosen for it to go live, you're always welcome to edit it. So if I click here, I click to edit ad, I can go into my ad and look at all the information that I've added. And maybe I want to change the inspection details, so I can add an additional date. One thing to note is that this ad feature is made to work with realestate.com.au, domain.com.au, and rent.com.au. So when you click to go live or even update your ad once it's already live, it'll automatically be added to these sites. Once your ad is live, you'll start to receive inquiries and applications. We've separated these features out because inquiries usually is the first step where people start reaching out from those property sites to let you know that they're interested in your property. So if you click on inquiries, you'll be taken to this table where you're able to see all of your inquiries, and if they came through by email or phone, you're able to look at the message, see where they came from, and even listen to a recording if they left a recording. Then you can choose who to contact in order to have them look at your property. Once you have done some inspections and you probably have an understanding of which tenants are going to apply to your property, and we usually recommend to not have everybody apply, just people that seem interested or seem like quality tenants. Then you'll start to receive applications. And so those applications will be one form applications that they can fill out on those property sites, and they'll come straight through to this feature. You'll be notified when you receive those applications, and you'll notice that some people are able to apply in groups. Let's say it's a couple, or you can notice that this is just one person applying. You're able to look at their information, click and view their whole application, and then choose if you'd like to run a tenancy check on them. If you choose to run a tenancy check, then you would use the National Tenancy Database. And once you've selected which tenant you would like, you can choose to create a lease. Now that you've selected the tenant that you would like to live in your property, it's time to fill out the lease agreement and get them to sign it. First, I'll run through the features on your side that you'll do when selecting a tenant. And then we'll go on the tenant side and see what their experience looks like when they're signing the lease and setting up their tenancy. When it comes to setting up your tenancy, we recommend that you use the lease agreement because you're able to put in your payment details, the bond details, and when you'd like your tenant to get started. You're also able to do a quick setup where you just do an invitation to your tenant and get them set up on the site if you already have a lease agreement. We recommend that you do the bond and the condition report when setting up your tenancy, and all of these exist in the lease agreement. So here is our lease agreement feature. You'll notice that we have 3 steps: create, view, and send. The create page is the form that you fill out with all of your lease agreement details, including your landlord details, the tenant details, the details for the lease, your rental payment method, rental payment details, bond details if you're collecting it, and then additional details for your property. A couple things I'd like to highlight are first, the rental payment details. So when you choose to add your rental payment details, then when you send the lease agreement, your tenant will be asked to add their rental payment method on their side of the experience so that you can start collecting rent. What's great is that we can automatically collect rent for you through direct debit. A new feature that we recently added is collecting your payment early. You'll see here that it says, would you like to collect this payment early? You can click yes, and then you can choose the date before the lease start date that you'd like to collect it. A lot of our users requested this because for the first payment, they like to collect it a few weeks before the lease starts. So this clearly allows you to choose that date, and then your tenant will be notified that they should pay this early on their side. Another new feature that we added in the lease agreement is the bond. So in the lease agreement, you can enter your bond amount and the due date. And what we have done is, depending on the state that you live in, we have recommendations. Some states recommend that you collect the bond as the landlord and lodge it yourself, while other states recommend that the tenant lodges the bond to the bond authority without paying you first. So we have those recommendations in the lease agreement for you, and you can choose if you'd like to collect the bond through RentBetter or not. If you don't collect through RentBetter, you're still able to send those bond details to your tenant through the site so they know that the bond amount and what they need to do with it. And if you'd like to collect it through RentBetter, then you can send the details and also collect the payment through RentBetter and then lodge it yourself. Now that I've gone through this 3 steps of creating a lease agreement, so create, view, and send, then I'm able to view the government PDF version of my filled out lease agreement on my end and see the status of waiting for my tenant to review and sign. If I feel like I made a mistake, I'm welcome to edit this and I'll be taken back to the form. After sending my lease agreement, I'm able to click on my lease overview. And once I get to the lease overview page, we've recently added a new feature where you can see the tenant onboarding status. So you can see that your invitation has been sent to the tenant, and now these are all the steps that they have to complete in order to set up their tenancy. So in your lease agreement, you created the lease agreement, You put the rental payment details, you asked for an early first payment and a bond payment. And then once they go through these steps, you'll see check marks of what they have and haven't received. And you're welcome to also send the condition report, which we count as part of setting up your tenancy. One thing I'd like to point out is the bond feature. So this is a newly added feature focused purely on collecting the rental bond. There are two methods of collecting bond, as I had mentioned. So you can do this through the lease agreement, or if you already had filled out the lease agreement and changed your mind and would like to collect the bond, then you're able to click on the bond feature. What's great is that it again shows you how you can use this feature, the recommendation for your state, and if you had already chosen to collect it through the lease agreement, the details will already be here. So this is what we filled out in the lease agreement. And it shows that it has been requested by the tenant, but it's unpaid because they haven't set up their account yet, and you're collecting it through RentBetter. You're welcome to add attachments to that request for both of you to see, or you can also add your own bond documents related to lodging or creating an account that you would like to have here for your records. The last step of setting up your tenancy is creating a condition report. You both should fill out the condition report to correctly state how the property looks when the tenant moves in. You can click on New Condition Report, fill out the details. We already have the bedrooms and bathrooms there, so you can choose the other rooms that you have. Click Confirm, and then your custom condition report is created. As you can see, it's similar to lease agreement where you have 3 steps: create, view, send. You can have the details related to your condition report, and then you can start inspecting your property. We've also created this feature so that it works well on your smartphone in case you're going around the property without any sort of Wi-Fi. As you go through the rooms, you're able to state if they're damaged, clean, working, or if they don't apply. You're able to add comments and upload photos that you took of each room. What's also great is that we're allowing people to fill this out as customly as you need to, so that as a landlord, you don't feel stuck into a form that doesn't work for you. So you're able to fill out and click on as many things as you need to, but you don't have to fill out each section, so that you can accurately inspect your property and send the condition report you stand by to your tenant. So you can go through all the sections, and then you can sign to say that you inspected your property. Signature today. Once you sign it, it'll create a PDF for you to review to make sure you stand by everything that you filled out in the report. And then you can click Next and choose to send it to your tenant. Once you have filled out the condition report, you can go to the overview page where you're able to access the report again by clicking on it. And you can also see the details related to the report when you filled it out and eventually once your tenant fills it out. Once everybody fills it out and signs it, then it'll say completed. I'll show you what it looks like on the tenant side a little bit later. All right, so I'm going to take you through the tenant side of the experience. As I mentioned earlier, when you're setting up your tenancy through your lease agreement, you fill out your bond details, your payment details, when you would like the lease to start, and you also fill out your condition report. And then your tenant will receive an invitation inviting them to the site to set up their tenancy and fill out anything that you need them to. When they receive that email, they can click to create their account, and then they'll be welcomed with this modal saying that they've successfully set up their account. Then they can click continue, and they can actually see their checklist that they need to complete to set up their tenancy. Then they'll be brought to their My Dashboard page, which looks very similar to your My Properties page. But because they just have the one property that they're living in, they just have the one property card. They have a side navigation like you do where they can get back to their account. And they also have a notifications area on the right side of their dashboard, letting them know everything that they need to do. What we have done in order for your tenant to not get confused on what they have to do next is we've created the property card into a checklist like you saw on that welcome modal. So this includes everything that they need to do. If you did not send them bond information, then the bond payment details wouldn't be here. If you didn't ask them to pay their first payment early, then this wouldn't be here as well. So it accurately reflects what you need them to do to set up their tenancy. What's nice is that when they create the account, they already get their first check mark and they can move on to signing their lease agreement. As they're taking through the steps of their checklist, you'll notice on the right-hand corner of each page that they actually have a progress tracker that lets them know where they are in their checklist to make sure that they don't get lost along the way. After recently deploying these new features, all of the tenants that have actually set up their rental payment methods, signed their lease agreement, and paid their bond mostly in one day. And this has really made the landlords and the tenants happy with the process. When it comes to the lease agreement, your tenant can choose to agree or disagree. And if they disagree, they can write comments and send them back to you for you to fix or update the lease agreement. Or they can agree and then choose to sign, just like you chose to sign the condition report earlier. Once they sign the lease agreement, you'll receive a notification letting you know that it's your time to sign, because we like to make it that the landlord sign at the end in case you'd like to update anything. Also, between each step, it'll let them know that they completed that step and it's time to move on to the next one. They're welcome to proceed to the next step in that moment, review what they just did, or go to their My Dashboard and come back later to complete all the rest of the steps. Now it's time to add the rental payment method. When your tenant is asked to add your rental payment method, they can choose to either use a credit or debit card or a bank account. It shows all the lease details on the top of the page to make sure they agree with what they're adding their payment method for, and then they can choose to fill this out. Once your tenant adds the rental payment method, they can click back and view the page, and they can always update it if they need to. And what this also signifies is that they're ready to start paying rent. So once they add their rental payment method, you'll also receive a notification letting you know that the rental payment schedule has been set up. Now it's time to complete the early first payment. If you've chosen to collect your first payment early, then your tenant will be taken to the early first payment page. What it does is it takes that first period payment. So if it's weekly, then it's 1 week. If you are collecting fortnightly, it's 2 weeks, or monthly, 1 month. They can click to proceed to payment, view the details, acknowledge that they're ready to pay, and click to pay. The first payment information will show up in the rental payments feature on both your side and the tenant side, and I'll show you that in a moment. Next is time for your tenant to pay the bond. You've chosen to collect the bond through the RentBetter platform, so they can choose to proceed to payment just like they did with the early first payment. And they're also welcome to add any attachments or receipts. They can also add their own bond documents like you do on your side. And lastly, it's time to fill out the condition report. Before we do this, I wanted to show you what the dashboard page looks like as well. So if we look at the progress tracker down at the bottom, you'll notice that all the steps that we just completed are checkmarked, and then we just have the condition report left. And if they go to the My Dashboard because they want to come back to do the inspection, they'll notice everything in the checklist has been checked off except for this condition report, and their notifications section is letting them know it's time to do that. Your tenant can click on the condition report and be taken to a condition report form that looks very similar to what you see on your side, except they can actually see what you filled out and they just need to agree or disagree and go down through each step. They can add their own comments and upload their own photos, and those will be saved for both of you guys to see. They can sign once they've completed their side of the condition report. And once they've signed, you can actually see in the background that it's clicked as signed and both of you guys will be notified. Also, when it comes to setting up your tenancy, the final modal shows you that everything has been completed and it's time to go back to your dashboard. Your tenant will be shown a congratulations modal, and then they'll be able to take a tour of the site showing them how they can interact with these features once their tenancy has been set up. They'll receive notifications throughout their tenancy whenever it's time for them to pay something or to do anything you ask them to do. They're able to view everything that they've completed in the past, and they can see their rental payment schedule. You'll notice here that the first rental payment has been marked as paid, and they can see when all of their rental payments are due next. They'll be automatically pulled out through the direct debit system, and everybody will be notified when a payment has been paid. They're able to put in any sort of maintenance requests, update their payment method, and then also view any sort of bill requests that you've put through. So that's the overview of the tenant side of the experience. Once your tenancy has been set up, it's time to oversee it. You can check out your rental payments feature, where you're able to see your rental payment schedule and when your tenant has paid. It looks like your tenant has paid the first rental payment. You're able to download a PDF or CSV version in case you need to bring this to your accountant. Throughout your tenancy, you'll have different expenses that you want to log. You might want to bill your tenant, and then you'll also have reports that you want to use at the end of the year to look at your financial information for your property. Whenever you have an expense, you're able to click to add your expense, choose the category, fill out the information, and save the expense. That expense will also appear in your report, which I'll show you in a moment. If you would like to create a bill from that expense, you're able to click Bill Tenant. Sometimes people like to do this if the tenant has agreed to pay for part of that expense. If you click Bill Tenant from that expense, then you're able to create a tenant bill and choose the amount that you would like to bill the tenant. So let's say they agreed to pay half, then you can bill them for $50, choose when you would like to send it to the tenant, and they'll be notified that it's time for them to pay. Once you send them the bill, you're able to look at the bill in the tenant bills feature, see when it has been paid, edit it, and you can also resend the request if you'd like to. And you'll notice that in the expense feature, it looks very similar to the bills feature so that you can have a consistent experience. You're able to log maintenance issues if any come up and choose what to do with that. And lastly is the reports feature. Whenever you add income or expenses or collect rent or a bill is paid, you're able to view that information in the report. Throughout your experience of using it, you'll have all those rental payments appear in the income category. All of your expenses will appear in the expense category. And then you're able to save this or download a PDF or CSV to bring to your accountant at the end of the financial year. So this concludes our guided tour of the RentBetter platform. Once again, I'd like to mention that Jeremy had talked to you all about the what and the why. And this is how you can successfully self-manage your rental property. It takes you from all over the place to having everything all in one place. Thank you so much for attending the RentBetter guided tour. I hope this gave you some insight into our product and helped you understand not only the what and the why, but also the how, which is using RentBetter to help you successfully self-manage your investment property. Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining Alison on the guided tour. We hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of that session. If you do have any questions, again, you're welcome to leave them in the section below, or you can email them through to us at info@rentbetter.com.au. We're really happy to help out further and answer any questions or things that you may have thought but didn't quite get an answer to. We've said this a couple of times throughout the series that this is all about taking action, and obviously self-managing a property is action-oriented. And what we want is, as a result of these sessions, is not for us to have just shown you something, but for you to actually experience what we call the RentBetter way. And for you to take advantage of the things we've talked about and actually see that not only is there an opportunity, but look, you can seize it and actually utilize the platform and actually manage your own property. So as a thank you to you, what we're going to do in the next session is basically give you an offer that's not available in the public domain. It's exclusive to this workshop series, and it will allow you to be sorted for the next 12 months, and I guarantee you'll be pleased with the sort of value associated with it. So if you've ever thought of doing this, if you've ever thought, now's the time I should manage my property, or I've really had enough of that property manager, I'm not necessarily sure I want to continue with them, or I wish there was another way that I could do things in a better way, and instead of dealing with perhaps a property manager, or instead of doing it in a way that I've felt has not necessarily delivered the results I want, we think this is a really great time to jump in. And part of what we're trying to, go through in this workshop series is to give you the confidence that this is a really great way to do it. So we're thrilled to be able to make this offer to you, and we'll do some of that in the next session. But if you've ever thought of jumping in, again, we think now is the time. So thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us in this session, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session.